Friday the 13th, full moon, the call of the profane. The air in Laguna Beach, California, on that Friday, March 13th, 2020, was charged with an energy that seemed to vibrate beneath the skin. It was as if the ocean itself, just a few feet away, breathed differently. The sky, already dark, was cut by an immense orange full moon that hung over the sea with an almost menacing grandeur. It was Lent, a time of reflection and abstinence, but also of unease. For believers, it was a night when the veil between worlds becomes thin, and anything, absolutely anything, can happen. There were 8 of us, but only 4 arrived early. Me, Emily, Mark, and Jason. The rented apartment was a block from the beach, and as soon as we got there, we set everything up, got dinner ready, and went for a walk on the sand. The guys carried beers, Emily and I a portable hookah. The wind carried the salty scent of the sea, mixed with the sweet aroma of tobacco and the bitterness of freshly opened beer. It was a night to celebrate, but also to feel the strange weight of the unknown. A few weeks before, Jason and I had a brief romance, but now we were fighting. This, though it seemed like a detail, would be important for what was to come. The atmosphere between us was tense, but not enough to ruin the night. Emily, always sensitive, seemed to pick up every emotional nuance, while Mark, more practical, just enjoyed the moment. That night, I decided to do some light magic, something for myself. It was nothing dangerous, just a request for love and clarity, a sincere prayer with a white candle and a rose. I sat on the sand, a little apart from the group, and asked for protection. The ritual was simple, but the surrounding atmosphere seemed to amplify everything. The sound of the waves, the moonlight, the smell of salt spray, everything conspired to create an unusual setting. Jason and I decided to go back to the apartment for ice cream, while Mark and I stayed on the beach. The mood between us, despite the recent past, was one of silent truce. We talked about trivialities, but there was a tension in the air, as if we were waiting for something we couldn't name. It was then that we saw it. A dark, large shape crossed the stretch of sand near the water. It looked like a carriage, but it moved too fast to be real. There was no sound of wheels, no horse neighing, just the muffled sound of the waves and that blur crossing the night. We stood still, trying to understand what it was. The carriage disappeared as quickly as it appeared, vanishing towards the sea. Curious, we went to the spot where it had passed. The marks in the sand were impossible to explain. The wheel tracks crossed each other, changed width, disappeared and reappeared chaotically. The horse's hoofs, sometimes large, sometimes small, appeared inside and outside the wheel marks, as if the animal was walking inside the vehicle itself. In some places, there was only a central line. In others, 2 widely spaced hoofs, as if the carriage had changed shape mid-course. The pattern was insane. There was no logic, no coherence. The marks simply ended at random points, with no exit to the boardwalk or the street. As if the carriage and horse had appeared out of nowhere and disappeared into nothing. We stood there, perplexed, trying to find a rational explanation, but nothing made sense.
As we examined the marks, an orange spot caught our attention in the sky. It looked like a hot air balloon, but it changed shape like the flames of a candle. I told Mark we should go there, but suddenly the sky opened and the moon appeared, enormous and orange, rising slowly. It was 8 o'clock at night, and that was strange. The full moon would normally be high in the sky by then. We sat on the sand, mesmerized by the moon's color and size. The silence was absolute, broken only by the distant sound of the waves. Time seemed suspended, as if we were trapped in a dream. I decided to approach the sea, drawn by the moon's reflection on the water. I went to where the water touched my ankles, feeling the night's cold and the silver light dancing on the waves. It was at that moment that I heard Jason shout my name. I looked back and saw him and Mark standing, pale, with expressions of pure panic. I ran to them, my heart pounding, not knowing what to expect. Jason, still gasping, explained, "Emily felt something strange and sent me after you guys. When I got here, I saw 2 kids on bikes going after Mark and another one going after you. I don't know what happened, but I saved you from something." I tried to understand, but my mind seemed unable to process everything at once. We stood there, together, trying to make sense of what had happened. The ghost carriage, the impossible marks in the sand, the orange moon, and the boys on bikes appearing out of nowhere. It was as if we were caught in a collective nightmare, where each element was more absurd than the last. We returned to the apartment in silence. The atmosphere was strange, as if something had been interrupted, as if an invisible threat still hung over us. That night, no one slept properly. The wind rattled the windows, and the moon seemed to watch us, motionless, from high in the sky. On Saturday and Sunday, everything went back to normal. There were no more signs of the supernatural. The beach was calm, the moon returned to its usual size and color, and the heavy atmosphere disappeared, as if Friday the 13th had been a portal that opened and closed quickly, leaving behind only unanswered questions. We talked about what happened, trying to rationalize. Maybe the carriage was just a strange vehicle. Maybe the marks were the work of some artist. Maybe the boys on bikes were just common muggers. But none of that explained the feeling of terror, the chill down our spines, the certainty that something profane had touched that night. Emily, who was always sensitive, said she felt a strange presence, as if something was trying to cross the veil between worlds. Jason, normally skeptical, admitted he had never felt so much fear in his life. Mark, who always sought logical explanations, remained silent, looking at the sea as if waiting for it to return some answer.
Days passed, but the memory of that night never left us. I, especially, felt there was something more, something we couldn't see or understand. I started researching Friday the 13th, full moons, rituals during Lent. I discovered that, in many cultures, this combination is considered a moment of great power, when portals open and entities can cross into our world. I remembered my ritual on the sand, the candles, the prayer for love and clarity. Could it be that, unintentionally, I had called something I shouldn't have? Was the ghost carriage an omen, a warning that ancient forces were awakening? Doubt gnawed at me, and every detail of that night returned to my mind like a distant echo. I started avoiding the beach at night, the full moon, any situation that might put me in contact with the unknown. But at the same time, I felt an irresistible attraction to the mystery, a desire to understand what really happened.
Over time, I began to notice small changes in myself. Strange dreams, sensations of déjà vu, premonitions that came true. It was as if the night of Friday the 13th had left an invisible mark, an opening to the inexplicable. Emily also reported disturbing dreams, always involving the moon, the sea, and a carriage that appeared out of nowhere. Jason, who was once totally skeptical, began to believe that there was something beyond what we can see. Mark distanced himself from the group, saying he needed some time to himself. That weekend changed all of us in ways we couldn't explain. The feeling of having been saved by an invisible force, be it spiritual, supernatural, or just luck, stayed with us for a long time, and the doubt persisted. What exactly were we saved from? And what would have happened if Jason hadn't arrived in time? Life went on, but the memory of that night never completely disappeared. Sometimes, when the full moon appears on the horizon, I feel a shiver run down my spine. I remember the marks in the sand, the smell of the sea, the feeling that something ancient and powerful had been awakened. I began to respect dates and rituals more, to be careful what I ask for, what I invoke, even unintentionally. I learned that there are forces we don't understand, and that playing with the unknown can have unpredictable consequences. The full moon Friday the 13th in Laguna Beach became a legend among us, a story we tell on stormy nights, always with a tone of warning. We don't know what really happened, but we know we were touched by the inexplicable.
Today, I look back and see that night as a turning point. Before, I was skeptical, rational, believing only in what I could see and touch. Now, I know there is more to heaven and earth than is dreamt of in our philosophy. The call of the profane on that full moon night changed my perception of the world forever. Emily became even more sensitive. Jason found faith in something greater. Mark sought answers in travels and spiritual retreats. Each of us was marked in a unique way, but we all carried the same certainty. There are mysteries that will never be fully unveiled. The beach, the moon, the ghost carriage, all of this became part of who we are. And every now and then, when the wind blows from the sea and the full moon illuminates the night, I feel that the portal is still there, waiting to be opened again. If you've made it this far, take this warning. Respect the unknown. Don't play with forces you don't understand. Don't invoke what you can't control. Friday the 13th with a full moon is more than a superstition. It's a reminder that the world is full of mysteries and that the veil between worlds can tear at any moment. If you liked this story, subscribe to the channel for more real and dark supernatural accounts. Have you experienced something strange on a full moon night? Share in the comments and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any new videos.